All right, hello folks. So as Yelena just mentioned, in this section of the presentation of the weekly office hours, I'll be going over some of the steps you can take to optimize your bot performance. And so I have created for this presentation 4 groups here in my bot to not only remind myself of what I want to talk about, but to also easily kind of structure what we're doing here so it doesn't seem overwhelming or disjointed in any way. So first here, we're going to talk about the A/B test plugin. And by the way, we're going to do all of this in context of an ice cream shop because who doesn't like ice cream? At least the majority of people love ice cream, right? So we're going to kind of use that as our go-to business here just to kind of apply this real world context and framework to what we're talking about. Okay, so the A/B test plugin, I'm sure many of you know generally what this is outside of Chatfuel. You know, A/B testing is a very popular and common marketing practice. Basically, it's a way of splitting your audience, you know, whether in a traditional sense, it's website visitors or people you're serving an ad to, splitting your audience into either 2 or more groups of equal sizes. And then kind of like in any traditional science experiment, you're exposing some people to a different treatment, meaning, you know, different content compared to the other groups. So then you can see what group, what segment of your audience is performing best, typically in terms of conversion rates. So in this example, what we're doing with this ice cream shop is we're, you know, selling cookie dough ice cream. And when the user is about to buy, we're going to show the one group of people the picture of this ice cream in a cup versus the other group will see a picture of the ice cream in a cone. And maybe our hypothesis here is that if people see it in the cup, that picture before they buy, they're going to be more likely to purchase, right? So basically, we're just testing different variations here. So I have set up in this first block called Cookie Dough Ice Cream, just this A/B test plugin. And this is the default that it's set to split it 50-50. It'll randomize all the people coming into this block into one group or the other, expose them to that, and then we can measure the impact. So here I'm just redirecting the one group to the cup picture and the other to the cone. Pretty straightforward. Again, if I wanted to add more variations, you know, 3 more, I could do that. And then down here, this will make more sense in a second. I'm basically creating an attribute here, which I have set up on this thank you page that users will receive after they purchase, if they purchase. And so then that's a way, that's kind of the metric that we're using to track the success, the conversion rate. And I'll walk through, you know, one of these examples to make it more clear. So then down here, we're measuring that. In this case, variant A is outperforming because I've already went through and tested this, but let me, you know, test this and show you what it looks like. Come on. There we go. All right. I think my internet is suffering because we're streaming, but here we go. So you see it has randomized here. It's showing me the cookie dough ice cream in the cup in this case. I'll click buy. And then if I would actually go through with the purchase and enter in my credit card details, it would take me to this thank you page again, where it would say, okay, you purchased. And since I got the cup photo, you know, it would track that accordingly in the conversions down here. And you can see to, you know, make more sense of this, variant A up here is the cup and B is the cone. So again, kind of getting into the details here, but the A/B test plugin is super powerful, a great way to optimize your bot to kind of, you know, double down your efforts once you determine what that winner is. So if it's the cup, let's say, you could double down on those efforts and, you know, remove this plugin once your test is over to drive all your traffic there and ultimately increase conversions. That's the whole purpose behind this plugin, and pretty simple to set up. And you're not just limited to doing this in terms of, you know, an actual transaction that's taking place in Messenger. You could do this with something like a lead form, or, you know, there's a number of different use cases that you could use. This is just one of them. I'll pause if there's any questions before I move on to the next section here.
We're okay for now. I'm refreshing the community just to make sure we're not losing any questions. But
perfect, yeah. Perfect. Awesome. So yeah, that in a nutshell is the A/B test plugin. You know, dividing your audience, exposing them to different things, then measuring the impact so you can double down your efforts once you determine that winning variation. So next up, we have send events to Facebook. Technically, this is called send analytics events to Facebook. This is a new plugin we just released. And again, we're going to go back to the ice cream business example here, and I'll explain more on this. So let's say for our ice cream business, one of our services that we offer is, providing catering, so to speak, to like a birthday party or some big event. We drive our ice cream truck there and we provide all this ice cream, right? It's a great way to maximize revenue and make a lot of, revenue in just a simple event in one place. So let's say this is one of the, revenue streams of our business. And to, put that into the chatbot, what we've created here is a simple lead form where somebody, on our Facebook page can go to our bot, fill out this lead form with some information about their event details. And then once they complete that, we get, an email, it gets added to a Google Sheet, whatever the case might be. And so this is a way to optimize your lead generation forms or, lead qualification, whatever you might be doing. And so I've set this up here already. You can ignore the send analytics events to Facebook's part right now. But I've created this 3-step lead form. The first step, the user can provide their email. Once they do that, we're asking them to provide the date of the party, the celebration, the event, whatever it is. And then once they provide that event date, we then finally ask them for their budget. And then at that point, we've captured our leads. So let's say that, maybe people are getting to this last step, but then when they're asked about their budget, there's significant drop off. It's a bottleneck in the flow. We want to be able to easily identify that and fix that, maybe reword the question or, provide an open-ended response rather than these options. Maybe people are self-conscious about, sharing their budget, etc. So the purpose of this send analytics events to Facebook feature, this plugin, is that it allows us at each step of the funnel, in this case, the lead form, we can set up this tracker, if you will. And so then we can visualize in Facebook, which I'll show you in a second, each step of the funnel to easily identify where those big drop-offs are. So at the very beginning here of the lead form, I've set up a custom event type. You can also use standard event types, which Facebook gives you by default. These are helpful when you're creating ads, but for simplicity, I'm just using the custom ones here. But that could be a whole, discussion on itself, standard versus custom. So I'm just using custom here. So at the beginning, I'm saying, okay, people have viewed this lead form. They haven't done anything yet, but they've just gotten here in the bot. Obviously, that's going to be the highest number of people because fewer and fewer people are going to, progress down the rest of the funnel. Then once they provide their email, after that, I'm going to add another plugin saying, okay, they've submitted their email. That's another event. Then we're just going to continue down the flow here. It's going to redirect them to the party date block. And again, I'm not going to go through all of this, but basically the underlying premise here is that after each of these steps where the user, answers a question, we're going to add this plugin, add some sort of identifying information to make sense of where they're at in the funnel. And then at the end here, we're going to add another one. So once they've gotten to this completed block, which they get sent to after they answer the last question, we're saying, okay, they completed the registration. And obviously that's ultimately the conversion goal here. In this case, there is a complete registration standard event type. So I'm using that, but you could also just create your own as a custom event type. Anyway, so a lot of technical information there. But what it boils down to here is in the Facebook Analytics dashboard. And to get here, all that I did was on this plugin, click this Facebook events link. And so then it'll take me actually to this events page right here where it'll show you all the different events that you've created. But what I find most interesting and useful is actually the funnels section here. And so I've actually created my own funnel already, although I don't think the data has still populated yet. It can take or like around 30 minutes, I would say, to populate, unfortunately. But I do have another funnel here that I can show you in a second. But basically here, I've added each step, each event that I created in Chatfuel. So then that once users start progressing through, I get some data here. You'll be able to see over time that graph kind of wane as people become less engaged. And maybe, again, from this, submitted party date to submitted budget, maybe there's, a 50% drop off, which is huge compared to the rest of the funnel. That would indicate, hey, address something here to make people, you know, more engaged and more willing to answer the question to, you know, complete the conversion. So in the meantime, though, just for visualization real quickly, I'll show you an example of what this graph actually looks like once there's data in it. You can see the people who get to each step of the funnel, and then in the middle here, the conversion rate from step to step. And then to add, you know, each element of the funnel, let me go back here. You just click this plus button at each step and find that event that you created. So all the custom events are down here. And then that last one that I use, the standard event, is complete registration. That's up here. And I've ordered them sequentially here. So that's, again, very quick overview. I know, again, it can be kind of technical, but really, really useful. Again, the final pro tip here is just after each step of the lead form, after each question, add that Send Analytics Events to Facebook plugin, and then you can see all of those in the analytics dashboard there. So I know that was a lot. I'll pause if there's any questions. If not, I'll move on. These last two are much simpler, by the way.
You can keep going.
Cool. Awesome. So the next two, the last two that I have here, first is button actions. Again, we're going to continue on with this ice cream shop concept here. So in spite of all this coronavirus chaos, one of the ways that restaurants and I guess ice cream shops too are you know, finding ways to keep making revenues by selling gift cards. So this is kind of timely and appropriate on that front. But let's say in this ice cream shop bot that you have a section where people can buy gift cards, and maybe you're already using a third-party service on your website that does all the fulfillment and order managing, because doing that yourself can be kind of crazy. So what button actions do is they allow you to track somebody who clicks on an external link in your bot. Previously in Chatfuel, you couldn't do this, but now you can, and this is really powerful for determining who's most engaged in your bot and who potentially you might want to retarget. So here I've just created a very, very simple text card with a button here that says order now for gift cards. We're redirecting people to, you know, whatever the ice cream website is where people can buy the gift cards. Now here, again, the goal isn't to track the full conversion and see if they actually went to buy or completed the purchase on the website. It's just tracking, did they click this link? And so here I've created an attribute called clicked gift cards is true. And now if, you know, any number of people who go there, I have a way of tracking them in the people tab to create my own audience or re-engage them as well. So here I could, you know, say if, you know, click gift cards is true, I could filter all those users here, create a customer lookalike audience, which I'll talk more about in a second in the next step. Or I could also go into the re-engage tab here, and when I'm going to send my message, you know, add a filter here, type in that attribute, which I'm not going to do right now because there's no users who have it activated, meaning nothing will show up. But I could type in that attribute. If they click through is true, then I can target just those people. So again, this is just a very simple way to find your most engaged users in the bot and retarget them as well if you would like. And I should mention as well that this is a pro feature. And Yelena, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe all of these are actually pro features now, at least the ones that I've mentioned so far, the A/B test.
The A/B test. Yes,
yep.
That's correct. We have a question. Is it possible to add an event if the user clicks on a button?
So yes, absolutely. And there's multiple ways to do that. Like I said, with the button actions, if you want to track an external link click, for that, you couldn't add an event to my knowledge. You would have to use the button action. But yeah, going back to the send events to Facebook, you could absolutely do that. Basically, just on the resulting block, you would add that plugin. So just to make that a little more clear, I'll just create a new block here and show you what that would look like. So you could say, you know, do you want to begin the lead form? And you could do this with quick replies or buttons. It doesn't make a difference. And then you could say yes. I could create a block here then that we'll connect to, and we'll say, you know, start lead form. And then we'll connect this button to that. So we have this set up. And then, yeah, on this resulting block, you would just add the send analytics events to Facebook and then you could continue with the flow here. So yes, totally possible. Any other questions, or should I finish up
I think
here?
you can take it away from here. Yes.
All right, great. And cool. So last section here is lookalike audiences, which actually doesn't really have to do with creating any blocks here. So that takes place in the People tab, and it kind of goes hand in hand with what I just mentioned with button actions as well. So with lookalike audiences, this is a great way to optimize your bot performance, specifically with Facebook ads. And so how this works is I can use some existing attributes that we have built in here. So one of those is called sessions. And this is a way to track basically the frequency with which people interact with your bot. So every time basically a user interacts with your bot, that's a session. So in other words, the more sessions that a user has, the more engaged they are. So we could type in sessions here and say if sessions is greater than, I don't know, let's say 10. I don't even know if there's anybody. Okay, 2 copies of me that are most engaged. Big surprise. So we could, find sessions. These are people who are pretty engaged. And then, we could just create this as its own audience. And for simplicity, let's just do that. Let's not overcomplicate it with other attributes right now. And so then what lookalike audiences are, we can click export users here and click download. And this will allow us to, basically upload this list of our most engaged users to Facebook when we're creating an ad. And then Facebook will target for us not those users who are already in our bot, but new users who share similar characteristics and behavior to those users that are most engaged in our bot. And so then this is a new way basically for us to find new customers who, should be equally valuable as our existing customers. And it's a great way to reduce your ad costs as well, like cost per conversion. And so I would highly recommend experimenting with this, as well as the fact that during this time, I believe Facebook recently said that their ad costs are down by like 40%. So now is a great time to experiment with not only lookalike audiences in Messenger for click-to-messenger ads, but also just Facebook ads in general. And then also one other point to mention here, at this point I've said, hey, we want to find our most engaged users and build a new audience based on those people. But another way to think about it as well is targeting the least engaged users. And for that, you wouldn't want to use a lookalike audience, but you could use a custom audience, which is similar, but instead of targeting people who are similar to those customers you already have, it's just targeting that exact list of customers. So with that, you could, say sessions, less than, I don't know, 3 or so. So this is targeting the people who are least engaged in your bot. You could export that custom audience, send a sponsored message. And the goal with that would be to, re-engage these people who haven't interacted in a while. Maybe you give them some sort of incentive to re-engage, or, you push them down the funnel in a different way than, how you would push people down the funnel who are a warmer audience and, more engage with your bot. So that is not only lookalike audiences, but custom audiences, super powerful way to optimize your bot experience. So I don't know why this isn't loading, but that's it from me. I saw some things in the chat. So
yeah, there was an addition to the previous question about whether it's possible to add an event if the user clicks on a button, but to open a web page. So if a user is clicking on a button with a URL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a great question. I don't believe that's possible, just because if they, well, actually, no, I'm not using my brain. You can definitely do that. So if I go back to this group, let's change this up a little bit. So let's say, do you want to begin the lead form? Yes. And let's say this redirects to a URL. So we can call this, I don't know, leadform.com. And then what you can do is add an action. And if you wanted to, you could set an attribute too. But what you just need to do to create that event, if they click the link, is click redirect to block. And I'll just redirect this to the same block that I created before. So how this will work is if they click this button, it'll take them to that link. And simultaneously, it will send them to this block which will do exactly what we did before, but instead of taking, instead of directly taking that user to this block, they're getting the website first, and then it's redirecting them to this block as well. And again, we could use a standard event here or a custom one. So yeah, totally possible.
That's cool. It's a new plugin. I haven't played around with it too much, so this is very fun.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I don't know why it always takes Facebook a little while to refresh this data. But once you give it some time, let's see, no, still isn't loaded. But once you give it some time, I mean, it's super cool to visualize your funnel in this way, because the biggest value add here is that you have the Analyze tab here in Chatfuel. But it doesn't really get to show you that funnel level view. So it's super valuable that you can, create your own and obviously, again, see where those bottlenecks are, see where the successes are, and, make informed decisions based on that. So that's it from me. Again, the 4 plugins that you can use to optimize your bot performance. See, there's some more in the chat. So if you have any questions, let me know.
The question goes like this: is it possible to populate an event and retarget on this event, or maybe a lookalike on this event? So I guess creating a lookalike audience based on the events you sent to the analytics?
Yeah, great question. So at this time, unfortunately, it's not possible. I imagine in the future, Facebook will have this capability. But yeah, because when I heard about this feature originally, I was super excited. And I mean, it's still super exciting, but originally I was like, oh my gosh, like this is a breakthrough. It's kind of like the Facebook Pixel, where based on a user being in certain parts of your bot, you can retarget them. So maybe they, look at a product, but they don't purchase. You could then, retarget them with a sponsored message for something like cart abandonment. But unfortunately, at this stage, it's not possible to use those events individually to, create different audiences. That being said, well, you can't do it with this feature specifically. You still can do it with attributes and the people tab that I just mentioned. So instead of using the analytics of plugin to create those audiences, you could still create an attribute, when a user sees the, product, and then one attribute when they purchase. Create a custom audience in the people tab like I just showed, upload that to Ads Manager when you're creating a click to messenger or sponsored message ad, and you can achieve the same effect. So, so yeah, it's not possible with the Facebook plugin itself, but you still can do it.
So there's a workaround for everything.
Basically, yes. Yes, that's the best way to sum it up.